Good evening, everyone. Happy Sabbath. Thank you all for coming out this evening. So this is a two-parter, so I'll be beginning. As some of... We just pray again? Okay. All right, let us pray before we begin. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us out here another Sabbath day. I ask that you open our hearts and open our minds to things that we may learn today and that we may use it to further your work in this world. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, as I was saying before, we have a two-parter, so I'll be beginning. And today is Community Guest Day, so I wanted to... When I was asked to speak about something public health related, as some of you might know, I work in the field of public health. I wanted to take infectious diseases, which we know a lot about, but I kind of wanted to focus and emphasize on the community aspect of it. So you might learn something new today, might not, but so we're going to start off by talking about the infectious diseases and the different types of pathogens or germs. So there's 4 different microorganisms that can transmit diseases to you. So we have bacterial. That's where you get such things as pneumonia. You might get strep throat, TB, tuberculosis. Those from bacteria. And then you have parasites. So if you hear someone has malaria or tapeworm or lice, these are all parasites. And then fungal infections, ringworm, athlete's foot. And then viruses, which I think are probably the most talked about type of pathogens, where you have the flu, the common cold, RSV, COVID, HIV, things like that. So there are different types. When you hear of infectious diseases, it's not just viruses, even though that's probably the most prominent one. There are different ways. And these are the different types of microorganisms that carry these diseases. But there are different ways that these different microorganisms can spread. So I apologize, it's a little bit small, but there are 5 main pathways for these microorganisms. So we have direct contact with each other. That's shaking hands, like when we go around and shaking hands during welcome, giving a hug, giving a kiss. And then there's airborne, which is when someone sneezes, the particles are in the air. Coughing, the particles are in the air. You breathe those particles in, it enters into your body. And then you have indirect contact. So that is if you are touching doorknobs, touching something at home that someone else touched who is sick. So I touch this, someone else touches it. They then touch their nose, their eyes, and it gets transmitted to you. And this is really big in the food industry, you know, those signs in all the bathrooms. Make sure you wash your hands before you go into it, because if someone uses the bathroom and then touches something, you then touch something, and then you touch your face, is indirect contact. And then we have those vector-borne, like rabies and things like that. So insect bites, animal bites, and then food and waterborne contaminants. So if you eat contaminated food like salmonella or something like that, or drinking contaminated water, you could get cholera. So these are the main ways that those different microorganisms we talked about can get spread. So that is the very, very, very basic. So you guys just took a class that I would teach in like 5 minutes. So very basic way of going through it. But I wanted to talk about a theory. So in public health, we have different theories. When we talk about how do we want to talk about diseases, how do we want to talk about community health, how do you want to talk about things. And a theory or a theoretical model that I want to talk to about today is called the socio-ecological model. So ecology is the way that we interact with the environment around us, and then socio is how we interact with each other. So not only are we interacting with each other, we're also interacting with our environment, right? So there's this big model, and each one feeds into another. So typically when we think about it, when we think about health, we think about what we can do, right? We can wash our hands. We're more susceptible to different chronic diseases because of genetics, or, how much knowledge you have and things like that. So typically that is how we look at diseases. But in my field, in public health, I like to look at it in more of a public field and more of a community base. So there's interpersonal. So that is the relationships that you have with your friends, your family, your neighbors, teachers, coworkers. That also affects your health. You might not really think about it, but that does. And then you have organization. What school do you attend? Where do you work? What church do you go to? That also affects your health. Community, so that is more of like a cultural, so that's like the cultural background that we have. That also affects your health. And then societal also affects it. So a lot of times people think about, that's more medicine, individual, you, one-on-one, clinical, but there's a big world out there, right? So we're going to talk about it. So first thing we're talking about is individual factors. So again, what do you know? How do you behave? Your attitudes, things like that. So remember, we're talking about infectious diseases. So I want to talk about your own vaccination status. I know vaccines is a really big hot topic. I'm just saying now, as someone who works in public health, I 100% believe in vaccinations, but how you are vaccinated then helps you to determine if you're going to get sick by someone else, right? Any other underlying health conditions, those who have, if you were here a couple of weeks ago when I talked about autoimmune diseases, if you have an autoimmune disease, you might be more likely to be susceptible to getting different infections, as well as your hygiene practices. So that is all you. As I am standing here, as you're sitting there, we have different practices, knowledge, beliefs, behaviors, different effect, like it affects us differently. So here are some common prevention methods that go for individual, right? So when you wash your hands, how long are you supposed to wash your hands for? I'm hearing. Okay, so typically 20 seconds. A lot of people like to sing a song while they're washing their hands. Right. You can sing the alphabet if you want. You got to get through the whole alphabet, I think probably twice to get through the 20 seconds. But that is something that you can do, right? Cover your mouth when you sneeze. Okay, I know that's big with the children. Make sure you're covering your mouth with your, right there. So you don't, because if you cover with your mouth and then you go touch somebody, there you go. Okay, so if you can't wash your hands, you can use hand sanitizer, but the hand sanitizer should be at least 60% alcohol based. Okay, so don't skimp out when you're buying your hand sanitizers. Here's a big one. Stay home if you are sick. I know a lot of us like to thug it out and just I'm going to still go to work. I'm still going to go here. I'm still going to go there. If you are feeling sick, especially if you are in your infectious stage, meaning you are actively coughing and sneezing repeatedly, you can just stay home, right? Avoid close contact with people who are sick. I know a lot of times you go visit people, so make sure you're taking the proper precautions when you are visiting people who are sick. Practice food safety, okay? So make sure you're washing your hands, using clean utensils and things like that. And regularly clean and disinfect high-touched areas and objects. So that's what you can do, right? I can't control what you do, and you can't control what I do. So you can only control what you do yourself. But another big thing is knowledge. You can't do something if you don't know. So I have a very short quiz. We can do it together. I like interacting. So here is the first question. How many viruses do we know of that can cause the common cold? Okay, we have about 50, 150, over 200, over 400. How many different viruses are currently known that can cause the common cold? I hear over 400. I heard about 50. About 50. Anyone over here? You guys are quiet over here. About 400, about 50. So I'm hearing a lot of A's and A and D, right? Okay, so it is actually C. Oh, you can't even see the color change. Okay, it's actually C. So it's over 200 different viruses that can cause the common cold. So a lot of times we hear different vaccinations. That's why we don't currently have a vaccination for the common cold. There's a lot of different viruses, right? We'll be getting shot up every other day. So that is why there's not, right now, things can change in the future, a vaccination for the common cold. Okay, so before COVID-19 came around, which infectious disease was the leading cause of death in the United States? So we have measles, the flu, hepatitis, and HIV. Flu, hepatitis, HIV. Okay, so it is the flu. So the flu is the leading cause of death. Right now, it went back up to the infectious disease with the leading cause of death, but for the last couple of years, it was COVID. But now the flu and pneumonia are back on top. So, protecting yourself against these diseases, very important. Okay, we have the last question here. So whooping cough is back on the rise. So is it on the rise because fewer children are getting vaccinated? Even a fully vaccinated person can catch whooping pertussis or whooping cough. Babies too young to receive the vaccine are at high risk of catching whooping cough, or all of the above. All of the above. I hear a great consensus with all the above, and that is correct. So just because I myself am vaccinated, right? If I'm the only person in here that's vaccinated against any disease, but everyone else is not vaccinated, then we're not protected, right? It's called herd immunity when we get to a threshold that, okay, even if one person is not vaccinated, they're still not at a big of risk. So fewer children are getting vaccinated for whatever reasons. I'll keep those opinions to myself. And even a fully vaccinated person can still catch the disease. So vaccination is not like 100% protection against anything, right? It just decreases your risk of getting these diseases. So yes, thank you. So that was all about individual factors, your own knowledge, your own practices. But now I want to talk about some aspects that are probably talked about a little bit less. So interpersonal, so between people, right? So these are your relationships with your family, your friends, your coworkers, anyone in your social network. So that would be, remember when everyone was quarantining, because if you're in close contact with someone who is infected, you yourself can get infected with whichever disease. We talk about COVID a lot, but as I mentioned before, there are plenty other diseases out there. Household crowding and common health-seeking behaviors. So if you come from a family who says, we don't wash our hands, we just don't wash our hands, and you go into the world and you say, well, we just don't wash our hands, you are now at higher risk, right? If your family did not believe in quarantining, did not believe in wearing masks, did not believe in all these other protective precautions, you would then go into the world and put other people at risk because of what your family does, right? Your family practices. If you and your friends, we could even take it to like chronic diseases. If you and your friends decide, hey, we're just going to smoke all the time, right? And you're now putting yourself at higher risk of lung cancer because of something that you and your friends do. So here are some common prevention measures that we can do that takes into account the relationship you have with other people around you. It's Community Guest Day, right? The relationship that you're having with other people. So we can encourage open conversations about symptoms, testing, and vaccinations. I know a lot of times, especially when it comes to like STIs or certain, we don't like to have that conversation. It's super taboo, right? We don't talk about certain things. So if we can encourage open conversations about certain things, even vaccinations, as I said, it can be a very taboo topic and people don't want to talk about it. So we don't talk about it. So then people don't get vaccinated and then they can get sick. If you have older family members, older friends, older church members, we can help those out, help them to schedule their own doctor visits, go in and be that person to give them a ride to the doctor if they need to, or the urgent care or a clinic, or help them go to CVS to get medications. Helping other people can help them, feel better. Also, model good behavior. This is really, really big, I think, especially when you're talking to kids. It's, you can't tell someone to wash their hands all the time or cover their mouth when they cough and you're not doing it, right? So you have to make sure that you're modeling good behavior because young people are watching. And you can also offer help to prevent sick friends and family members from exposing others. A lot of times we hear the excuse of, well, I have to work, I have to do these things, I have to go out even though I'm sick. But if you had someone to help you out, you'd be more inclined to stay home and get better, right? I would like some, feedback, please. Thank you. I'm over here. I feel like I'm lecturing at a class. So, and you can also check in virtually if they are like actively sick on someone, so they don't feel so alone. So I think those are some big factors that we can take into place when we talk about relationships with people, right? But again, that's still something that you yourself decide to do with someone else, right? So let's go even wider. Let's talk about organizational factors. So I chose this model because it talks a lot about what we can do as a church collectively, right? So the main focus here, we talk about structures, we talk where you work, so workplaces, hospitals, schools, churches. Those are all places that have their own set of rules, their own policies, and they help to shape behaviors, okay? So where you work, where you go to school, they can have their own infection control policies. They can have their own sick leave policies at work. Mask mandates if they had it. Some schools tend to have vaccination requirements. So if you go to a school that has vaccination requirements, you're more likely to vaccinate your kids, right? So it depends on where you live your day to day. So we can provide, which we started doing here at Margate in 2020, we can provide options for remote participation, right? We live stream our services. I believe we're live streaming right now. So we can live stream our services. There's options for remote classes. You can go to work remote if their job offers those opportunities. And that encourages people to stay home if they are sick. And we here at church, we can even host health clinics, health days. When we're outside, people can come in to get tested or, get their blood pressure checked and things like that. So we are orchestrating an environment of being healthy and checking on yourself, right? And we have options for those, especially if it's free, we have options. And then we have sharing accurate and easy to understand health information. Last week was Health Ministries Day. We do have an active health ministries department at church. Here's something that I am also trying to do is share that information for you. Providing hand washing stations or hand sanitizers in areas of the church. We can walk in and you come in, get some hand sanitizer, and you can sit down. I feel like us as a church, that's something really simple that we can do and provide to keep everyone safe, right? And we can also train our church leaders on infection control practices. So there's times when we have food that we're offering. Are we practicing food safety? That's something we could think of. When we do communion, handling the food safely and having masks if needed and things like that, just offering those things. And inviting health professionals to speak on different diseases during events. So again, people, when they think of controlling diseases or they think of infectious diseases, they don't think about church, right? But there's ways that we all can take public health into our own hands and deliver it to the community and even to our own members here, right? So, okay. And then the last option here is community factors. So we went from individual to interpersonal to organizational, and then community is even larger. Okay. So we have prevention measures. So we have our church leaders here. If you have local clubs that you attend, we can normalize healthy practices. So it's not necessarily like setting a policy in place, but remember when I said if your family tends to do something, that's what you tend to do. If you go to church and you see something, you will probably take that into account. So we can normalize healthy behaviors, support getting vaccinated, or support people for staying home when they're feeling sick, maintain clean shared spaces. So I'm trying not to go down a rabbit hole here, but there's something called social determinants of health, right? So when you think about staying healthy, you're like, people who live in unsafe neighborhoods tend to stay inside, right? They don't tend to go outside and walk around and get their steps in for the day and things like that. So if you live in an area that has a lot of parks, you will then tend to go to those parks and you'll probably get more steps in each day. And then that will lead to the healthier practices. So if we maintain clean, shared spaces like the parks in our communities, recreation centers, encourage public transportation and things like that. That can also help. Offer, like I mentioned before, safe areas and spaces. So we could even use the church as a safe place for people to come. And that builds, the main topic for community is building that trust that we need within the community for people to come to us if they need something, as well as, you know, if I come up here and I can say everything, but if you don't trust me, you're not going to take anything I say seriously, right? So I feel like if we have that community around us, we can definitely build that, I don't want to say community again, but build that bond so that we're able to take the things that we need seriously. And then also improve transportation options. So this one goes outside of this church. It's like looking at Margate as a whole, looking at Broward County, South Florida, U.S. Like we can go as broad as we want. But there's a lot of different things that we can do. And I just wanted to show very briefly how the infectious disease is just a topic, but there's many ways to tackle it. And I think a lot of times we think about COVID-19 and we think about the flu and things like that, but there's different ways to tackle it. So in conclusion, just want to wrap it up. What can we do as a community? So there's the 5 different aspects as I showed you guys before. So individually, wash your hands, stay vaccinated, stay home when you're sick. But interpersonally, we can check on our loved ones, right? Check on those church members, those sick and shut-ins. We can check in on them. Reduce stigma, so that is increasing the knowledge and conversations when it comes to a lot of different diseases that we tend not to talk about or pretend don't exist. And we can model good behaviors. Community-wise, participate in health events. You know, we say we want things, but if we have, blood donations or health clinics, will you guys show up? Will you invite other people so that they can use these resources? So participate in these health events, share accurate information, support those in needs. Organizationally, we can support the health department, right? The health ministries, invite people, host health drives. And as policy, we might not have the most active role in policy, but we can pray for those that are in charge, and we can, advocate for those that we want to be in charge because they make those laws and those policies. So we can advocate for those and volunteer and do things like that. So very, very briefly, but I just wanted to show you how health can affect all of us as a community. And I just want to leave you with a quote from 3 John verse 2. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. Yes, I have a few hands. Q&A. People have questions? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, I'll try not to. What is COVID-19 and? Yes, so there's currently 3 federally approved, FDA approved vaccines. So COVID-19 is a virus, just like I mentioned before, just like the flu, just like the common cold, RSV, things like that. So it is a virus that affects your respiratory system. Okay, so when you get in contact with the virus, it can have a plethora of symptoms, but that's the gist of it. Is a virus that can affect your upper respiratory system. And then there are 3 vaccinations that are currently approved for COVID-19. Yes, a follow-up. Okay. There is a vaccine for the flu. Not the cold, though. Not the cold. Okay. Yes, Elder Edwards. Yeah, I don't really advertise it. But yes.
Or remind them. One question.
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend a vaccine for flu and for pneumonia, those over 50?
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend a vaccine for that?
Yes, personally, again, this is personal. I do recommend getting vaccinated for the flu. There are different factors that can affect how well you take it, because some people do have side effects from the flu. You can get side effects from the vaccine, excuse me. But so I would suggest that you know, when you talk to the doctor or the pharmacist that's delivering these, to tell them about your medical history, for sure, because you can get side effects from it. But overall, it has been approved and it is safe. Yes. Yes. As of, I don't have the statistics in front of me, and I know they do update the vaccine ever so often. I think you're supposed to get it every year. So there are things, but you yourself need to make sure you're talking to your medical professionals to make sure assess everything revolving it. But generally, yes, it is safe. Yes.
You said vaccine does not fully protect the person from getting a virus. As a child growing up in Jamaica, and most of us were Jamaicans in here can attest, there was a time when there was a polio outbreak, and they go around to the schools and they gave us polio shots. I got polio shots. Measles. You mentioned whooping cough. I got that as a child. I also got the chickenpox virus. When I was coming to this country, they asked me if I had varicella, which is chickenpox, and I said yes. They did not give me the vaccine because I would have developed antibodies to against that virus. So my question is, if vaccines do not fully protect,
Not 100% correct.
so there's the risk of you taking the vaccine, but yet you still get okay.
Yes.
And we can see that with COVID-19 because a lot of people who took the vaccines contract the virus. And there are some people who didn't take the vaccine didn't get the virus.
Right. So I'll say this just briefly. Each virus is very different, right? They are all viruses, but they all present themselves differently. Like chickenpox, you have literal marks on your, you get the marks on your body and things like that, while in COVID or the flu, you would not. So each of them have their own thing. I will say you take the vaccine for yourself and for others, right? You take the vaccine to protect yourself and also to protect other people around you, right? So the more people that are vaccinated against these diseases, the less chance that the disease can spread. It's not 100%. Almost nothing in this world is 100%, right? So you can still take get the vaccine and still contract the virus, but one, it'll probably be less of an effect on your body than if you did not, because there are people who weren't vaccinated and got COVID and were hospitalized. They had to get hospitalized. People died. COVID was one of the leading causes of death, and it was very prevalent, especially in 2021, right? So it decreases the severity of it. It decreases the chances of someone else in your family and your household getting it, and it also it can just prevent you from accepting it. And as you mentioned before, I'm trying to remember all the points that you said. If you do get sick, you do have antibodies in your body to prevent you from getting sick again. So that is something as well to consider. Is that the best way? I wouldn't recommend, exposing yourself to a lot of diseases so you can get those antibodies. I wouldn't recommend that. I feel like there was something else that you said that I wanted to touch on, but maybe it'll come back to me. I don't know if I answered your question though. I did? Okay.
I don't know if this is true, but there's some argument that is going on either in court or somewhere now. Talk about this vaccine from COVID-19 that they cause a lot of deaths or complications in persons. Is that true or is not true? The vaccines for COVID-19.
I haven't heard of that. I don't know if anyone else here wanted to touch on that. I have not heard of the vaccine causing. Like I said, you can have side effects. A lot of people might get sore muscles. You might even feel like you are sick. They did not give you the virus. I want to say that the vaccination does not give you the virus. I know some people do believe that. That is not the case. It gives you I can't think of the term off the top of my head, but it just creates your body to create those antibodies, right? So it makes your body respond to the vaccine as if you were sick, so that you can get those antibodies. So when you do actually come in contact with the virus, your body already knows what to do, right? So it's I don't want to say it's RNA. Maybe Jonathan can help me. I don't know if it's the RNA, but they give you some things that will give your body the reaction. Go ahead, Jonathan. He studied this a little bit more than I have.
So with vaccines, and depending on the vaccine you get, they give you a sort of not. Let me get.
I think they want you on camera.
Yeah, they do. So with vaccines, they give you a sort of quote unquote dead version, so it doesn't have any virulence. So it's not going to spread in your body. It's not active. So it will have all the antibodies that a regular virus would have, but it's not going to be active enough to essentially give you the full, cause you harm or anything like that. It then it allows the body to essentially create T cells and B cells, memory T cells and B cells for the next time you do have it. And I guess, depending again on the vaccine, for about 2 weeks, it will take time for it to actually activate and to actually develop those antibodies in your body, because it's the first time or in a long time that your body is actually come in contact with this. So it takes time for that to actually develop. And then when you actually get the virus, as what Tienna said, the symptoms will be less rather than increasing your risk of being hospitalized. And those with underlying conditions are actually encouraged to get the vaccine. And with reactions to the vaccine with underlying conditions, it's rare. Again, nothing in this world is 100%, but those with underlying conditions can consult their doctor first before getting those vaccines and see what they say in term with their underlying conditions. But it is generally encouraged for those who either have immunocompromised disorders to get vaccines so that they're actually ready and their body stands better of a chance against them. Those.
Right. Thank you so much. Future doctor in the house. Okay. I have time for one more question. If anyone else has a question. If not, one more question. Okay. Yes. Right there. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
Also, it's mentioned, too, that the time limit where you get it, the flu shot, it's preferably in October where it's active, because they said that the vaccine is only lasts for 6 months. So it's a time period in which you, at your discretion, where a lot of people are prone to get a cold during the fall, that's a better time to get it. So there is a time limit.
Yeah,
also.
It's the flu season, right?
The flu season. Some people,
right.
they'll advertise it at a pharmacy right now, but technically it's lasts for 6 months. So if you get sick after you get it during the fall season, you're going to get sick because it's wearing out of your body. If you take it too early.
Yeah. Thank you. We had one more. I'll give her, and then we'll go to part 2.
Okay, so I just read that it's not mandatory for children to be vaccinated for school. So I'm wondering what impact that will have on the school population generally.
I'm trying to pick my words very kindly and wisely. So yes, that has been, I think it's been passed in Florida. And as I said, as you all know what my profession is, I am 100% against it. But I will say that I would not be surprised if a lot more children get sick. So because people are not vaccinating their children, right? Right now, we don't have a polio. We don't have a smallpox. We don't have a lot of these diseases because everyone was vaccinated. And, we always hear measles popping up here and there and things like that because less people are. The plague even popped up. Yes, that is true. So it's like, less and less people are getting vaccinated because of whatever their own personal beliefs is. Again, I won't get into that. But I do think if you want to, follow the ecological model, protect yourself, be kind to your neighbors and your community, I would highly suggest to read up, become knowledgeable on these things. Don't just take my word for it. Go talk to your doctor, read from verified sources. Please don't just ask ChatGPT. Please actually read certain things to learn more about it. Get yourself knowledgeable, ask questions, and then, decide for yourself. But I will say, if you ask me, every time I'm going to say, just go ahead and get vaccinated personally. But again, learn for yourself and do those things. So thank you so much for your time. I don't want to take up all of Sister Gray's time. So we will wrap up section 1 for this evening. But thank you guys so much. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out and ask me. Thank you.
Happy Sabbath evening, everyone. I'm going to embarrass Tienna a little bit further. I am so proud of her. When I started coming to this church, Tienna was about 9, 10, and she's always displayed this capability to be what she is. And I remember one Sabbath evening we were having AY, and they were asking the little kids, why they come to church. And I'll never forget, Tienna said, I'm here because my daddy's here. And Tienna and her dad have always been like that. And I just love her. And I'm just so proud to see, our young people just growing up and doing so well. And we have young Jonathan who's going to become a doctor soon. Our kids are doing well. We are doing something good here. All right. So they're not ready for me yet. I'm going to talk about a sort of unpleasant topic that some of us Caribbean folks don't like to talk about because, y'all trying to kill me off. Yes, so we are going to be talking about estate planning, which is, who knows what that is? Y'all should know what that is, right? That is making a will, yes. What else? Planning for when you're dead. Let's just say it. Thank you, Trudy. We've got to, listen, I know as Christians, we prepare for death in one way where we make sure our souls are, well with God. But this is something that we should not ignore. It causes way more problems than you want to imagine. So on the screen there, I have my introductory paragraph. Estate planning is the process of making plans for the management and transfer of your estate after your death using a will, a trust, insurance policies, and/or other devices. Should I get the clicker, guys? I'm sorry. Okay. That's good. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to put you all on the spot. Let me see the hands of the people who are, we don't have any greatest generation born people in here. We don't have anybody born before 1928, do we? Okay. All right. Next we have silent generation born between 1928 and 1945. Do we have anybody in that age group? 1928 to 1945. Don't be shy. Okay, nobody here. All right, baby boomers. We have plenty of baby boomers in the house. Where are the baby boomers? 1946 to 1964. Where are you? All right, so we have a good few of you. And then we have Generation X, which is 1965. Thank you, sweetie. Generation X, 1965 to 1980. Where are you? Okay, we have a couple. All right, good. And then we have my generation, the best generation, which is the millennial generation. Where are you? Just a second. Millennials, born 1981 to 1996. Come on, let me see you. There we are. We got to represent. I'm sorry? All right, so, and then, yes. No. We have the silent generation 1928 to 1945. Baby boomers are 1946 to 1964. Baby boomers, yes, that's when the US had the baby boom where everybody was having babies. That's why it's called that. Then Generation X is 1965 to 1980. Millennials, 1981 to 1996. And then we have Gen Z, which is 1997 to 2012. Generation Y is my generation. Millennials are Generation Y, okay? And then we have generation, I don't care, the Generation Alphas, we're not going to talk about them. They can't have estate planning because they're too young. So, you want to tell me how many people, I love statistics, I love numbers, so I'm going to throw those at you. What percentage of Americans right now, I think the population in the US is what, like 8 billion? Who knows? I don't know. It's a lot of people. What percentage of the US population has estate planning? Take a wild guess. Less than 50? 25? 1%. It's not that bad. All right, so the actual answer is around 31%. Okay, so that's kind of sad, because I could tell you stories for days of people who die without any proper estate plans in place and the horrors that follow from that. So, back to my introduction on the screen. There are many steps to estate planning. The first thing you must do is conduct a comprehensive review of your estate assets. Now, a lot of us will say, oh, I don't do it because I don't have assets. If you own $20 in the bank, you have assets, okay? Because when you die, someone's gonna want it, okay? If you have cash, if you own cars, if you own clothes, if you own jewelry, if you own houses or other real estate, if you have investments, if you have savings, retirement. Did you know retirement accounts count towards an estate? Okay. If you own land, that counts towards your estate, okay? Excuse me. I think I'm going the wrong way. Okay. All right. What are some popular estate planning documents? Who can tell me? Yeah, everybody knows about wills, yes? What does a will do? The will says where your stuff goes when you die. All right. And who it goes to, who inherits your stuff. Okay, so everybody has a general idea of a will. If you have a will can be handwritten. Some states do not recognize handwritten wills. For purposes of this, we're going to talk about Florida. Well, never mind about that. Yeah, Florida, because we're in Florida. So your will can be handwritten. It has to be signed by the person making the will. The person making the will is called a testator or a testatrix for the female. And the signature must be notarized. It must be witnessed by two people. It must be notarized. Now, if you're a person who cannot write, you never learned to write, you can make a mark, but that mark still has to be witnessed and notarized for the will to be valid. The next one that you might have heard of is a trust. Now, a trust is, anybody knows what a trust is? A trust is a document. It's a legal document that you have an agreement with. It's a three-party agreement. So I'm going to make a trust. I heard someone say it. I'm the trustee, okay? Or settler, that's another term for it. The person, I'm sorry, I'm not the trustee, I'm the settler. The trustee is the person that I'm putting in charge of my trust, okay? And then you have the beneficiary, which is the persons that will benefit from the trust. The trust will never be valid until you fund it. So you can go out there, have the documents drawn up and say, this is the Margate SDA Trust. I'm going to put all these chairs in the trust, these microphones, the TVs, whatever. And if we don't actually transfer the title ownership of these things into the trust is not valid. So you have to actually put something in the trust for the trust to be valid, okay? The other thing, it's at the top there, guardianship. Now, you might have heard of guardianship in the sense that, like an adult that's taking care of a child whose parents cannot take care of them. That is what it is in most cases, but it also applies to if you want to designate someone, let's say you don't have siblings, you don't have relatives that can care for your children in the event of your demise, you can create a document that, let's say I want Philippa, Sister White, to be my kid's guardian if anything happens to me. We create a document. I sign the document that says I am giving her this authority, and it goes into effect in the event that I pass away. So if I die, then everything that I would do as a mother, she now has the power to do. So that's something, a lot of people don't even think about that because we have relatives that we assume will take care of our kids, but it's something that you can do if you want to. I don't know if you can see this very well. Power of attorney. You're familiar with that, right? A power of attorney gives someone the power to handle your affairs, whether financial, legal, whatever. And they are they can be very complicated and they can be very extensive. You can say, I am giving, again, Sister Philippa, the authority to act as my attorney in fact. It's not an attorney in law, but an attorney, you call it attorney in fact, to have access to my bank account, to file my taxes, to sell and buy property on my behalf, that kind of thing. That's what a power of attorney document does. Again, it has to be notarized and witnessed for it to be effective. I think I have up there, durable power of attorney. What that means is that it does not go into effect until, it remains in effect even if the person becomes incapacitated. So let's say I give Philippa power of attorney over my affairs today, and I'm perfectly fine. It's still valid if tomorrow something falls on my head and my brain stops working, but I'm alive or whatever. So that's what that means. A lot of you guys in the healthcare field have come across the advanced healthcare directives. You have a living will, you have a healthcare surrogate. And what that does is you designate someone to handle your medical affairs in the event that you become incapacitated. So those don't go into effect until you become incapacitated. HIPAA authorization, that's just the consent that you give to allow your medical records to be disclosed to somebody else. All right, I wanted to kind of point out a little bit the difference between wills and trusts because they're two different animals. So a will basically is, the first thing about a will, it costs less to prepare, okay? The will is written up, it says, I'm leaving my house to my 3 children to be divided equally, blah, 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 done. it goes into effect when you die. It has to go through the probate process. You know what probate is, yeah? Okay, so probate is the process of the estate going through the court system, making sure that the person's last wishes are honored. Now, there's one caveat here. If you die without a will, what do you think happens? What? Someone said the government takes it over. Someone says they fight over it. It still goes to probate. It still goes to probate. We have what we call intestacy laws. So if you die with a will, you die testate. You have a will, you die testate. If you die without a will, you die intestate, okay? If you die without a will, each state has its own intestacy laws that they apply. So in Florida, if you die and you don't have a will, let's say John is married, John has 10 children and a wife. 10 of John's children, 5 are under the age of 18, 5 are over the age of 18. Different scenarios will apply. If John dies without a will, everything that John has goes to John's spouse, regardless of the fact that he has adult children. Every single thing goes to his spouse. If John's wife dies, everything goes to John. Okay? So be aware of that. If you're married and you have children that are not your spouse's children, and you wish for your estate to be divided between your current spouse and your children from a prior relationship, you need to make a will or do a trust. Because if you pass away and you have nothing in place, your children get nothing. Okay? So, I'm sorry, wills, okay. So that's the big thing with wills. They go through probate, and so we went off on the tangent about intestacy laws. If you're not married, your children get what you die and leave. If you don't have children, it goes to your parents. If your parents are not alive, it goes to your siblings. And so they'll go through the whole family line. And if there's absolutely nobody, it escheats to the state. So if you don't have a spouse, if you don't have children, if you don't have siblings, if you don't have aunts, you don't have uncles, you have nobody, and you don't have a will, the state of Florida will take control of your estate. Like I said, wills are less costly to prepare, but they have to be probated. Now, another thing that you should be aware of is that to probate, the process to probate a will can be lengthy. It is usually expensive. Lawyers can charge anywhere from $250 to $1,000 an hour, depending on the amount, the size of your estate. Some states have probate fees set in stone. So in Florida, attorneys are entitled to 3% of the value of your probate estate. 3%, yes. So if your estate is valued at, say, $1 million, 3% of that goes to your attorney. And another thing, you cannot probate without an attorney. So do what you need to do, because I tell people all the time, in a lot of situations, nobody's happy but us because we take your money. So be careful with that. Yes, we're gonna take questions. I think I messed up my pages. Just a second, please. Okay. All right, and then one more thing about wills. If you get a will and it goes through probate, it becomes public record. So anybody can go to the, well, not technically anybody, but people can go to the courthouse and request to see the file and see what's in there. So that's one of the cons of doing a will. A trust, on the other hand, it's off the bat, a trust is significantly more expensive to prepare. So you're paying upfront, but you're avoiding that 3% mandatory probate fee for your lawyer later. So it might be worth it for you to say, I'm gonna pay $6,000 to prepare a trust now, than pay my attorney when I die 3% of whatever the value of my estate is. So that's the big thing about trust. One of the other big things about trust is your assets are being managed by a trustee. When you pick a trustee, you have to be so careful who you're picking to manage the assets in your trust. If you create a trust and you leave $1 million in there for Annabelle and another $1 million for Abigail, and you give control of the trust to Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan decides, I want this $1 million. He's gonna spend that $1 million. They're required to do annual accountings to show the court what they're doing with the money, but they will still abuse it. And then by the time the kids get to the point where they're of age to take control of the assets, there's nothing there. So you have to be really, really careful who you're putting as trustee to manage your assets, especially when your assets are for children that are underage and they're not old enough to take control of it on their own just yet. The pros with the trust is it keeps your financial matters private. It does not go through probate, so there's no court file that's created that anyone can go and request if privacy is a big thing for you. That doesn't happen. And like I said, the cons is that it's generally more expensive up front and it's complex. What are the steps in the estate planning process? I have a list here of 12 things. First, you want to gather your assets. We call it inventorying. So you want to make a list of everything that you own, from a pin to a boat. You make a list of everything you own, and you determine how you're gonna distribute it. So you want to protect your family, because another big thing is life insurance. You want to make sure that, especially in the case of families where you have one main breadwinner, you want to make sure that you are leaving an estate plan where your family will be able to continue to live the way they're living now with you gone. And life insurance plays a big thing in that. So you want to make sure you do that. Determine the plan that's best for you, whether you want to do a trust or if you want to do just a will. Choose a guardian for your children. Some people have pets that they choose, they leave everything to, and they have to assign a guardian to the pet. I'm sure you've heard the stories where people die and leave a whole ton load of money to their pets. And then you can also assign a guardian over your own self in the event that you become incapacitated and you can't take care of yourself. Determine and establish the necessary directives. So, do you need an advanced healthcare directive? Do you need a living will? Do you need a healthcare surrogate? Do you need a general durable power of attorney? What is it that you need, and get that done. Make sure you name your beneficiaries. That is a very important step you don't want to forget, because if you go through all this and you create a trust and your beneficiaries are not named, Find a trusted partner, create your estate plan. Again, sign and notarize your plan. Number 10, notify your personal representative or your executor. We call it personal representative in Florida. You cannot create a trust and say, I am designating Sister Jacinth Brown as my personal representative, and she knows nothing about it. You cannot create a will and say, I'm leaving Brother Thomas as a personal representative. He don't know nothing about it. Okay? You have to let your personal representative know. Talk to the person beforehand. Make sure it's something that they want to take on, because it comes with responsibilities and duties that they have to perform. And then once you have everything, make sure you store them in a secure place where they can be found when you die. Okay? Because if you have a will or you have a trust and you hide it and you're dead and we don't know where it is, it's going to go through probate. Intestacy rules are going to apply, and it's not going to go how you want it to go. And then the last thing you want to do, you want to update as needed over time. So let's say pastor creates a trust. He has 3 children, and he makes provision for those 3 children and his wife. Then 2 years from now, pastor and his wife have twins. Okay. Y'all saw the way he jumped up. It's okay, Pastor. I'm not calling it down on you. But, the shock value helps you to remember. So let's say he has the trust and he has 3 children, and everything's taken care of for the 3 children and his wife and his mom. And then in 2 years, there's additional children born into the family, but you don't update the trust and you don't update your will, then those later born children are not provided for. Okay? Another scenario is divorce. It's not something we want to talk about, but it's there, it exists, we have to deal with it. If you get divorced and you have an estate plan that involves the former spouse, you want to change that yesterday. Okay? Do not wait until the ink is dry on the divorce decree to do it. If you know you're getting divorced, it's unpleasant, we don't want it. But if it's happening, change your stuff. Because if anything happens to you, they sure will be gone with it. Because that's, and then your children, and if you later get remarried, they're out in the cold. So be careful with that. Where are we? Trust steps. Okay. Common estate planning mistakes. And here, I think the slides are a little bit jumbled, Common estate planning mistakes. Not having an official estate plan. That is the worst mistake you can make. That's the number one mistake, to not have a plan. Like I said, if it's even to write a will on paper and sign it in front of 2 people and get it notarized and say, here, Brother Thomas, I trust you. This is my will. Do something. Do not leave it hanging. Again, not updating a plan over time. We just talked about that scenario. Not making arrangements for if they become incapacitated. So you got to make arrangements for yourself. We think we're invincible, but you still want to be prepared for whatever's going to happen, okay? Not including improper ownership of assets. How easy will it be to pass the assets on? Not including charitable gifts. So there's a big area with gifts. And I'm going to get into that later when we talk about taxing your estate. You want to be clear what is a gift, okay? Because gifts have a way of sliding out from under. I'm going to talk about estate taxes and all of that. But you want to make sure that if something is a gift, it's a gift. Again, let's say Sister Tara is my sister, and she's married, and I want to leave my home to her when I die, and I give it to her. You can give it you can gift it before you pass. I need to make sure that it's clear that it's a gift to her because she's married. If it's not clear that it's a gift, it becomes what? It becomes marital property. And now her husband, against her wishes, can claim half of it or whatever percentage, So you've got to make sure that you're clear that this is a gift and it's just for her. She can choose to share it with her spouse or whoever she wants to. But for you, the person doing the gift, you want to be clear that this house is a gift for Tara Johnson alone. And then she could do whatever she wants with it. Underestimating the implication of taxes. We're going to talk about taxes. Not having liquidity of assets. So some assets are liquid, some are not. You want to make sure that some things you can't avoid, like you own a home, that's not a liquid asset. You kind of cannot control that because you don't know when you're going to die. So those things, there are processes in place to deal with that, because if you pass and the home is there, the home can be given to the heirs that you want, or it can be sold and the money divided for whoever, that kind of thing. We talk about gift, putting your child's name on the deed to a property. So that can create some other issues. Let's say I have a home and I'm going to put Sage's name on the deed. Sage is a child. If I put Sage's name on that deed, Sage owns the home with me. However, because she's underage, she cannot do anything with it. And that portion of that property, you can't do anything with it because that's a child. You will have to go to the court, get a guardian assigned over her estate, even though she's alive, to deal with it. So you want to be very careful about things like that, okay? And here we go with the taxes, estate planning and taxes. So we have estate tax, we have inheritance tax, and we have gift tax. Florida does not have any of these taxes, okay? Other states might have. Actually, we do have a gift tax, I think. I need to double check that, I'm not sure. But I know for sure we don't have an estate tax, we don't have an inheritance tax. So you don't need to worry about your estate being taxed by the government when you pass. That being said, we have federal estate taxes. So we have state laws and we have federal laws. Federal laws supersede state laws usually. So even though we don't have a state estate tax, we have a federal estate tax, and that can apply. That being said, there's the exemption limit is 13.99, I think. So in order for your estate to be taxed federally, it has to be valued over $13.99 million for a single person. So it's 27 point something, almost 28 million for a married couple. Huh? That exemption was set to expire January next year, and it's not going to expire. In fact, it was going to expire, and it was going to go back to what it was in, I think, 2017, which was 7 million. So they doubled the exemption in 2017, and that's a way for, you hear them talking about the rich not paying their fair share of taxes. So that was a measure to allow people with that amount of an estate to escape taxes. Now, it was supposed to revert. It's not reverting, it's actually increasing come January. So, yeah, that's the big, beautiful bill that was signed the other day that does that. So, we don't, yeah. So these little things up here. So Florida has no estate tax, and we have no inheritance tax. The federal estate tax, okay, here it is. The 2025 exemption is 13.99 million for a single individual and 27.98 million for married couples. Now, if your estate is worth more than 13.99 and you're a single person, then your tax rate is gonna be pretty high, and it can go as high as 40%. So you're gonna pay taxes of almost 50% on the more expensive, the higher the value of the estate, the more taxes you're gonna pay. But bear in mind, that is if it's over that 13.99 threshold for single people and 27.98 for married couples. All right, so there are some ways to avoid probate in Florida. We have a thing called a pay on death clause. If you own a bank account, and these are simple ways that you can avoid paying an attorney to create an estate plan. Let's say you don't own a home, you don't own a car, but you have a bank account and that bank account has money. You don't want it to go through probate. Simple thing, you add your heir to your account as a pay on death beneficiary. And what that does is the person is not a joint account holder. They don't have access to your account, but on the event of your death, all they have to do is produce your death certificate. The money is transferred to their account. No court, no probate, no legal fees. Okay, and that works for regular bank accounts, savings, anything with stocks, anything with money just sitting there, liquid assets like that. You designate a pay on death beneficiary, and you don't have to worry about court and probate. If you own a home, we have what is called an enhanced life estate deed, or we call it ladybird deed. What that does is I own this house and I want Sister Deborah to have the house when I die. I don't Y'all are killing me. You're welcome. I don't want her to have to spend money on an attorney and legal fees. So this is what I do. I get what is called a ladybird deed. And what that deed does is the deed says, I own the house. The house is mine. I can do whatever I want with the house for as long as I am alive. The minute I die, and Sister Deborah can get my death certificate, take it to the Broward County Property Appraiser's office. She's dead. Here's the deed. Mine. That's it. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to pay legal fees because it's already set for it to just change hands without. So for a lot of my clients that own one home, I tell them do that. It's just one house. I would love to take 3% of your value of your estate, but just do that. That way you don't have to pay and go through all of that. You can have joint ownership. So again, this applies to like houses, any asset that you can own jointly. Joint ownership, it's with rights of survivorship. What that means is a right of survivorship is two people own something jointly, whoever survives one becomes the 100% owner of the asset. So Brother and Sister Thomas own this building that we're in. They own it as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. That means he can't deed it to anybody else. She can't deed it to anybody else. Anything happens to him, it's hers 100%. Anything happens to her, it's his 100%. Any property that's owned in a joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, you cannot devise it to anybody else. Because the person that you own it jointly with, it's theirs if anything happens to it. So when you buy your home, your deed can either be tenants in common. Usually if you're married and you're buying a home, your deed is going to be a joint tenant with rights of survivorship, because we love marriage and we love to give married people all the benefits that we can give them. So if you're married and you're buying a home, the default deed, type of deed is going to be joint tenants with rights of survivorship. If one party deceases, it goes to the other. And even if you have children, you cannot devise the home to those children. It goes to your spouse. The other way you can do it is tenants in common, where Brother Thomas and Sister Thomas, again, are buying the home. So they buy it where they own the home in shares of 50% each. Sister Thomas can devise her 50% to he, she, and the old lady. Brother Thomas can do the same. It does not default to the other spouse. So that's a big difference. If you're married and you're buying a home, the default is the joint tenants with rights of survivorship. The other option is to do tenants in common. Sorry, my phone keeps locking on me.
Under which category would you put like cars?
So cars, you can gift them. Yeah. So if your car is not financed, you own the car free and clear, you can gift the car, so that when you pass, it again avoids probate and it just goes to the person that you intend to have it, okay? Or you can also add their name to the title. And so if you die, then they get it. Yes. I'm going to take questions after. Just let me get through this. All right. So there is something I want to. There are many, many people that have died without without a will or an estate plan of any sort. I have a list of them somewhere, but I picked these three because these are well known. So Bob Marley died 1981. You know when Bob Marley's estate was settled? I think around 2012. You know why? He had no estate plan in place. And we all know Bob Marley has all these children and ladies, and so the laws in Jamaica are different from here. I'm going from the basis of U.S. law. So in Jamaica, I think the wife gets like 10% of the estate, and yes, 10%, and the rest is divided for the children or something like that. So that's what happened. But there was because he's a musician, you know, there's royalties and there's all this stuff that was going on. So it took a long time. Now, I don't know how much the estate was valued, 30 million in 1981 when he died. In today's money, now it's valued at 105. 3% of that and more, because when the estates are this big, the lawyers don't stop at the state mandated 3%. We're going to charge you hourly. And it's Bob Marley. We're going to charge you $1,500 an hour. So think about how much they're paying to lawyers to fight this. Then we have Prince. Prince died some years ago. His estate was valued over $150 million. He had one sister that we know of, one full sister. Then all these people came out of the woodwork claiming to be his siblings. Now, all these people had to get DNA tested, all these things that cost money. The IRS had a hand in the pot, so it was just a big mess with that. Assets actually had to be liquidated to pay off the IRS and to pay the lawyers, all because he didn't have an estate plan in place. Everybody knows Black Panther, right? He died, I think, colon cancer. This was one of the good ones. So at the time of his death, he was married. He didn't have any children. His parents were still alive. He had no will, no estate plan. His wife asked the court to split the value of his estate, half and half. She took half. She gave half to the parents. So that was how that go. I think Princess Diana died without a will. The other popular person that I didn't get to include, Michael Jackson. No will. Yeah, Michael Jackson didn't have one in place either. And a lot of other people. John Denver, that guy that sings "I'm Leaving on a Jet Plane." And it's a lot of these people that have a lot of money and they just never do it because for whatever reason. And I'm going to tell you 2 stories, and then I'll let you ask questions. I had a client that older gentleman, he had one child, and his child had one child. So he has one child, one grandchild. His child predeceased him. Predeceased, for you guys, are you listening? Hello? Thank you. Predeceased means to die before. So his child died before him. So his only heir was the grandchild. But he had siblings. Now, he had an estate worth several $1 million. He had an estate plan in place. He had made a will for everything to go to the grandson after the son died. Whatever happened, he had a discussion with his siblings. He decided he wanted to change it so that the siblings would get half of the estate and the grandchild would get the other half. We redid the will. COVID hit. Country got shut down. He never came to sign the will. And he died. Now, it was tears and mess because the siblings, we know that he intended for the siblings to have a half of the estate. And the reason he had done that was because the grandchild was, for lack of a better term, a bum. He was a drug addict, all these things. And I cannot tell you how that grandchild just went through that money that this man worked so hard for. Easy come, easy go. That's what happened. Another story. My client's parents were going home from church one night, and someone speeding crashed into them. The car was completely totaled. They were both comatose. The dad did not recover. He died. The mom recovered. I want to say not even 100% because she died like 2 years later. When the accident happened, they owned several properties, rental properties, cars, a lot of business, an estate worth several hundreds of thousands of dollars. They had no estate plan in place. When the accident happened, they're not dead, so we can't probate anything. The son and the daughter, we had to file a guardianship to have the court give the son authority to manage the dad's affairs, to collect the rent, to access his accounts, do all of that, because none of that was in place, and it cost. So excuse me, those are the things that can happen. So just, we're Jamaicans. We don't like to talk about dying. I mean, we're humans. We don't like to talk about dying, but the Bible does say it's appointed to man once to die. We're all going to die, and it creates so much peace of mind for your loved ones when things are in place. So deal with it. Don't run away from it. All right, questions? Yeah, there's Brother Thomas and Brother Thomas.
Yes, it was a few years ago when my wife passed. I realized how important it is to have a will. That's one. So I agree with having a will or something in place when you pass. Now I have this friend. The friend might think that she might they don't have in terms of like a property, but they might have value in terms of like some funds in the bank. The question is asked, what do? They don't want the children to know that they have that fund in the bank. So in case anything happened to that person, what should that person do?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to give you the lawyer answer. It depends. What does the person want to do? So they have the funds in the account. They don't want the children to know. Who do they want to have the funds if anything happens?
The children, in case anything happened to them, but they don't want them to know.
They don't want to know. Okay. So that's that pay on death beneficiary that we talked about earlier. You can add your children to your account as the pay on death. You don't have to tell them anything, because what happens when you die, especially if you die in a hospital, the first agency that gets notified is Social Security Administration. So you don't need to go down to the bank and say, my daddy died. The bank already knows. Social Security already told them. So they're going to look at the records. They're going to see that, hey, this person passed away. There's a pay on death beneficiary on the account. They will reach out to that person, because when you are designating someone as your pay on death beneficiary, you have to give the bank the person's contact information. So they're either going to send a letter, email. They generally won't do emails. They'll send a letter and tell them that, hey, this happened, you need to come in, blah, 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 blah. So that's what they can do. Okay?
Right here, all right. It's a question for you. Can you answer it the best way you can? So as you know, some of us, I spend most of my working life in Jamaica. So I'm entitled to a pension in Jamaica, right? No, I'm not entitled to that until I'm 64. I have beneficiary on it, my wife and my son, right? But God forbid, suppose something should happen to me now before I reach a pension age. Would they be entitled to it immediately, or they'll have to wait?
I'm not sure how Jamaican laws apply. It would be one or the other. Either they would be entitled to the benefit at the time of your death, or I don't think that they would have to wait for your 64th birthday because you're dead. So I think that if anything happens to you, that your wife or your son needs to notify the whoever is in charge of it over there, and let them know that he passed away. I'm the beneficiary on that account, and they'll take care of it. Once they're listed as beneficiaries, the banks will generally do what they need to do.
All right, just for your personal advisor. So my wife and son is on it as beneficiary, but God forbid, I'm just being realistic. My wife travels with me all the time. God forbid there's an accident and both of us die. What happened? It's just,
so,
would my son get it? Because it's 50-50, I've left it in.
Yes, so if both of you pass away, you don't have other children. You both share the same children. So your child is going to get your 50%, and he's going to get his mom's 50%. So he's going to get all of it. So even if you say, one chair is from my wife, second chair is from my son. If you and your wife die at the same time, that second chair goes from her to him. So he will still get it.
Okay, thanks.
So in Jamaica, you know, when you buy a house, so my dad and my sister, they joined together to buy a house. But he had tenant in common.
Your dad
on
and
the
your sister,
title.
okay.
Right.
Mhm.
So my dad passed, he didn't leave a will, but there was tenant in common. Although my sister paid the mortgage and it's final, can she sell the house without us?
No, she should not be able to. If it's a tenant in common situation and your dad did not have a will, it's 50-50. It doesn't matter who pays the mortgage. Don't fall for that, guys. If you're paying the mortgage, we don't care who pays the mortgage. We care what's on the title or the deed. We absolutely don't care how much you're paying for the mortgage or who's paying the mortgage. What we care about is whose name is on the deed or on the title. So if it's tenants in common, she has 50%. And if your dad didn't have a will, your dad's 50% is to be divided amongst you and any other siblings. So she should not be able to sell that house without you guys becoming involved in it. Anybody else?
Yes. Me.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, scenario. As I work with the city, I work in utility billing. And there are some residents who don't want to pay their water, come in and pay their water bill every month, so they set up ACH. And there are instances where the account holder, the resident died, and the payment is returned, and a family member said that the bank closed the account because they died. In the case where the bank account only have one name, when the person dies, because you said if the person dies within the hospital, then, you know, they're going to notify Social Security. What becomes of that funds? The reason why in Jamaica, I work in the bank, when someone dies and they have to pay for funeral expenses, they would have to go to the Administrator General in Kingston to get a letter, take it to the bank, and whatever the funeral expenses are, then we'd pay that to the funeral expense. Now, whatever is left, I don't know what would become of it, but I know to take care of the funeral expenses, they have to get that letter from the Administrator General. In Florida, how would that that money that is in the bank, what would become of it? Would it go to the government, or is it okay?
So in Florida, if the person passes away and nobody does anything, once Social Security notifies the bank that the person is deceased, they don't close the account so much as they freeze the account. And you will see that the name on the account no longer says Mary Jane Thompson. It says the estate of Mary Jane Thompson. And it's going to sit there until that estate is probated and whatever happens to it happens. But it's not closed and the state does not take it. It's going to sit there until something happens. Now, the other part of your question, oh my gosh, tell me again the other part of your question. I'm sorry.
So I was just comparing with Jamaica. What would become of the money? Say it sits there in an estate. What would happen?
And then, when usually if the house is gonna sit there also until some heir or beneficiary. There's a house on Royal Palm. The owners died and no heirs have come forward. There's no beneficiaries apparently, and the house is just there. The city has boarded up the windows and everything. The house is just there because they don't know what to do with it. I suppose at some point the state will decide. I think there might be a time limit, maybe like 7 years or whatever. They'll either demolish it or sell it at auction or whatever. But usually if someone passes and nobody does anything, all they do is they switch from your name to the estate of your name. And then the other thing, that's what I was trying to remember, regarding funeral expenses, In Florida, when we probate your will, if there's assets in your estate, before we distribute the assets to your heirs, the funeral expenses come out of the top. So let's say we have $10,000 in your estate and we're going to distribute it to two people. They get $5,000 each, yeah? Before we distribute, we take the funeral expenses off the top. So if funeral expenses were $7,000, we take that out. The $3,000 gets split evenly between the two of them. But you don't go to the bank to get the money to pay the funeral expenses. Usually someone will pay the funeral expenses out of pocket and then get reimbursed when the estate is being probated.
So maybe you need to do part 2, because we talk about wills and trust. Many of us may not have something to, I know wills are trust, a will to, make a will or so, but to prepare for the inevitable, because we're all going to die. Insurance, term life, life in full life, term life, that is something you can think about and, do a presentation at another time.
Yeah, that would be enough. But quickly, insurance is, if you buy an insurance policy, if you buy a life insurance policy, again, you designate a beneficiary at the time you purchase the policy, or you can add them later, whatever. But once there's a designated beneficiary on the policy, when you die, the insurance company will either reach out to that beneficiary, or the beneficiary can contact the insurance company and get the funds distributed to them. If there's no named beneficiary on the policy, again, it sits there as the estate of such and such until it's probated. My good sister over here had her hand up.
For common law unions, where there's no will and one spouse die, does the other spouse?
Florida does not recognize common law marriages. So if you are cohabiting, if people are cohabiting as what we call common law marriage in Jamaica, it's not recognized by the laws of the state of Florida. You are just two people living together, and you have no benefits from that. So unless you jointly own property, like as tenants in common or whatever, there's no benefits from that situation. Anybody else? All right, you've been good students. All right, so thank you for your time and your attention. I don't know if anybody has Vespers.